What's up, Discovery students? As you can see, we're meeting online tonight. We didn't want to just completely cancel. We want to give you guys an opportunity to continue this discussion we started last week as we begin our new series looking at what it means to grow in our faith, to have a faith that is really ours, that is growing, that's thriving, and what that looks like. And so last week we introduced that. High school started a series called Counterfeit, being able to tell the difference between a fake faith and a real faith. And then middle school, ours was called Connect the Dots. So kind of all those different nuggets of truths that you hear, what does it all mean together and how do you own it for yourself? And I want to continue that conversation tonight. We'll try and make this quick. As always, feel free to be active in the chat. You can also use our Discord channel if you want to talk more about this, if you have questions or discussion related to it. But to start, Nathan, did you ever, I know you have a lot of siblings.
I do.
Yeah.
4 siblings.
Did you have to share a room with any of them growing up?
I was just thinking about this. Yes, I did. My younger brother and I shared a room for a while. And for the most part, it was pretty good. We got along. But sometimes things went a little crazy. Like this one time, for some reason, he took his Batman action figure and he put it in the light. I don't know why he put it in the light, but the light bulb got really hot and then he forgot about it. And so like 20 minutes later, we're like, why does it smell like burning plastic in our room? And sure enough, the entire action figure had melted around the light bulb. And it was nasty and smelled bad for a while.
That's good.
So yeah, we shared a room and sometimes it didn't go great.
Yeah, I also had to share a room quite a bit growing up. I ended up getting so sick of sharing a room with my older brother that I asked my dad if I could move out into the other bedroom in the house, which was his office. And so I ended up getting half of a bedroom still in my dad's office. So we put like those cubicle office dividers literally in the room, which I think was better because when I had the room with my brother, there was no obvious line. And so we fought a lot over like, oh, your stuff's on my side. No, it's not, it's on your side. We also fought over what music we listened to because we liked different music. We fought over privacy, and he's 4 years older than me, so like bedtimes were different. And so I would get really angry at him when he would come in to go to bed and disturb me after I was finally asleep. And so it led to a lot of trauma, I think. So I actually like to let my kids experience that same thing. So they all get to share rooms as well because I think that helped through that trauma grow me into who I am today. And that kind of leads into what I want to talk about as it relates to our faith is what this looks like having a faith on your own versus of your own.
Sure.
So not doing faith by myself, having my own bedroom and all the privacy that comes with that type of thing, but what it looks like to own my own faith in the midst of even community. What comes to mind, Nathan, when I mention faith and community?
When we talk about community, I mean, it immediately comes to mind other people, other groups and things like that. And so I think the first thing that comes to mind is church. Like, what does it look like on a Sunday morning or a Wednesday night when you're around other people who believe the same things as you? For the most part, you can actually have that kind of shared connection.
Yeah. I think there's several proverbs that kind of address this, and a key one is Proverbs 13:20. And it says, walk with the wise and become wise, associate with fools and get in trouble. I've experienced both of these. When I was in middle school, I was really into skateboarding, and so I started hanging around with this skater crowd at my school. They weren't the youth group crowd, right? It was a different group of people. I would associate them with the foolish category here of Proverbs 13:20. Just some of the stuff they wanted to do, places they wanted to go, the things they were saying. And then I found myself, especially over spring break, my 7th grade year, that was really when like every day I was hanging out with them. And I just found myself being way too influenced by them in a bad way.
Yeah.
I started to sound like them, started to do the things that they were doing. I actually, because of their influence, tried to steal some stuff from our local grocery store. Ended up getting caught. It was awesome. I got in trouble for it and thankfully learned my lesson before getting too far in. And then I was actually reminded a couple weeks after that at church, at my youth group, of some of these proverbs that talk about who you hang out with matters.
Right.
Yeah, what are some of your thoughts?
I think, we become like those we're around. And so if we're around people who are doing things that they shouldn't be doing, constantly, eventually that will kind of pull us down into it. If we're around people who are building us up and encouraging us and things like that, we will learn to grow in that. I do think it's an interesting tension that kind of gets put there, because on the one hand, we're called to tell people about Jesus and to be in relationship with those who don't know him, so that we have those opportunities in order to talk with others. But at the same time, we need to be very careful to not let that influence us and pull us down. And so, maybe in the chat below or in the Discord, however you're watching this, how do you guys balance that tension? What do you find is a good way to make sure you're not being negatively influenced, but still being able to have that connection and relationship to be able to tell people about, Jesus and who he is?
Yeah, that's good. It reminds me of what the Apostle Paul said in 1 Corinthians 15:33, where he says that bad company corrupts good character. And so, there is that tension of what I want to surround myself with: wise people who help build and grow my faith. But at the same time, if that's all I do, I'm missing out on God's call in my life to go and make disciples of all nations.
Right.
Right. If you look at the life of Jesus, who did he hang out with?
Right.
It wasn't the church people all day, every day.
Right.
He went to where people who needed the love and truth of the gospel, and he shared it with them.
And he got criticism for it too. People,
Absolutely.
The religious people at the time would be like, how are you even around those people? And so it is a tension. There's definitely a little bit of both. And I think a lot of it comes down to making sure you have those right influences at the most parts of your life, that you're around them more than the ones who are going to be negative, that you've got. Honestly, it's almost kind of like this whole process of discipleship that, it's a big Christian word, right? But it's this idea of, it's not just you hear the gospel and that's it. It's that you have somebody else in your life that is building you up and pouring into you so that you can then grow. And so I think it's, we might call it like a mentor or something like that. Somebody who's more mature in the faith that can spend some, one-on-one even time or in a smaller setting, so that you can then talk to them like, look, these are what the kids at school are doing. This is kind of the society and the people that are around me, and then have somebody encourage you and say, look, here's how maybe you can relate to that without becoming a part of that. So really, if you don't have somebody who's more spiritually mature, and this is something that it never goes away. Like, this is a youth group only thing. This is as a Christian, and it's, I don't know, for you, it's like even now in my life, I sometimes struggle and don't have somebody who's always able to pour into me like I think would be helpful. And so if you can find somebody who is that for you, really I encourage you to do that. If you don't have somebody, and it's not as easy maybe as just think, hey, will you be my mentor? But maybe it is. Maybe there's somebody that jumped into your mind that said, I would love if this person took a little more interest in me and was able to help that way.
So there's another kind of like tension to live in that area also. You mentioned, we become kind of like the people around us, but we don't just want that counterfeit or that copycat faith, right? It needs to be my faith. So how do I balance being around someone who can help me learn and grow, but it being my faith and not their faith? Like, I think of, as a kid, growing up, it was my parents' faith. I went to church because they took me to church. I believed in Jesus because they said I should believe in Jesus. And it made sense as a kid. And I, asked for the forgiveness of my sins and put my faith in him when I was 8 years old. I was baptized, but still it was my parents' faith up until I'd say about 8th grade. I went to a summer camp after my 8th grade year. And that's when things started to click for me. I was like, wait a minute.
Yeah.
It should be more than that.
Yeah.
He's my savior. He's not just my parents' savior who I just by default fall under their salvation. Right. So like, what do we do with that?
Yeah, and kind of it's not what you're saying. It's kind of funny. We have a tendency to be, and especially with what we talked about last week, we can fall into this of like, well, I go to church and I do the right things, but my heart may not be in it. So how do we get heart transformation? And I mean, first and foremost, it just comes from seeking after Jesus. And the only way we can really do that is through knowing who he is and knowing what he said and knowing what he did. And so it's, Bible study, and it's not just read a verse every now and then, and it sounds kind of nice, but it's like understanding what the Bible is or what it says. And for those of you who are in our high school group and we're there on Sunday mornings, and that's kind of what we're talking about on a Sunday morning, like how do you read the Bible? And whether you're in high school, middle school, wherever you are, spending some time understanding how to read the Bible is key to being able to understand it and then have it actually be more than just something you're learning, but something that actually is digging into you. That they say you read the Bible long enough and it reads you back. And it's kind of a cheesy expression, but it's communicating something real that it actually will start to impact us and affect us. And that's what we're putting into our mind, and that's what we'll grow with.
That's good. Basically, one of the key things we want to stress today is that real faith grows with other people. We're not meant to have this faith journey isolated and alone. I'll give an example. So that same time, about 8th grade year, we had a new youth leader come into my church. His name's Andrew Garland, as our youth pastor. And he and his wife, Gina, I watched a lot. I learned from, I sat under their teaching, and I saw their authentic faith. And because of that, it made me want that for myself. I was like, oh, I want what they have. They love a certain way. They treat others a certain way. They're generous with every part of their lives. Like they opened their home and welcomed me in, kind of took me under his wing. And in fact, I even credit the fact that I'm in ministry today as a part of how God used Andrew in my life during my high school years. And so I personally experienced my faith growing because I was surrounded with people who were further along than I was, who had a faith that was stronger than mine, and were willing to share that with me. Yeah. And I was willing to receive it too. That's part of it as well. Yeah. I can't just Nathan, if you love Star Wars and I didn't, I can't just sit here and, oh man, I want to love Star Wars too.
Right.
I'm not going to listen to a word you said, I hate you. Right? Like that's not how that works. It's, okay, teach me, let me learn, let's talk about it.
Yeah.
And then from there, I get to experience that growth too.
Right.
And that increase in faith when I surround myself with others who have a like faith.
Right. And that's I like that because it's kind of like, so we talked about having somebody above you, but it's also having people that you are then pouring into, and then you've got peers around you that you're growing together. Like it's a community. And I think sometimes in especially like in American Western kind of culture, we have this tendency of like an individualistic type of thing where it's all about me and myself, but it's like the biblical model is bigger than that. It's about community. It's about everybody, not just on your own.
That's good. So we'll wrap up, but I want you guys to think about who is that person, right? What relationships do you have in your life that are drawing you closer to God? And if you're having a hard time answering that question, let's talk. Let's find those people. Wednesday nights is a great place to start. You have your small group leaders, you have the people in your small groups, but that's just the beginning. Like it can go even further. You need to know who are those people that are drawing you closer to God.
All right, well, thank you for joining us. We will see you next week in person, unless there's another snowpocalypse or something. But we want to continue this discussion in our Discord. So if you're already a part of our Discord, awesome, we'll see you there. And if you're not and you want to be, just email real quick, dsm@dfchurch.com, and we'll send you a link to join from there. See you then.
See you.